Hi, we're here today to talk about Thomas Jefferson, one of our most influential founding fathers, and the great legacy that he left for our country. Thomas Jefferson was one of the most significant figures of the Revolutionary era. From his work on the Declaration of Independence to his presidency, his contributions to American society have been long-lasting. However, some have reservations about his respected position in American history because of his seemingly hypocritical stance on slavery. While Jefferson was a slaveholder himself, he believed that the continued existence of slavery in the newly formed United States would eventually cause the country's collapse. He truly believed that everyone had an unalienable right to freedom, just not in this country. Jefferson's plan was abolition, to be sure, but he proposed following it up with the deportation of all freed slaves. This is particularly interesting given the widespread belief that Jefferson was in love with one of his slaves, Sally Hemings, and had children with her. He argued that the only way to keep both races safe was to keep them separate and to give them equal opportunities for freedom in their own countries. Jefferson's legacy has lived on long after his death. The Declaration of Independence is one of his long-lasting legacies, but another one of his lesser-known legacies is that his prediction about keeping the institution of slavery alive actually came true. He said that keeping slavery as a significant part of the American economy could only result in a civil war that would decimate the nation that he and the other founders worked so hard to build. This exemplifies how man's sinful nature gets in the way of true liberty. Jefferson and the other founders worked hard to build this nation, but they built it on economic principles and on reliance on exports that relied heavily on slave labor. And so it was very difficult for them to separate the institution of slavery from the continued prosperity of the country. However, Jefferson realized long before anyone else that keeping the institution of slavery as part of our American culture would only lead us on a downward spiral. Many years later, there was indeed a great civil war regarding this, just as he had predicted, and the country was torn in two, with the abolitionists and the slave owners fighting one another to determine exactly what Jefferson had begun thinking about so many years before. Should we keep slaves or should we not? This is not an often discussed part of Jefferson's history, but I think it's a very important one because it just shows more of his forward thinking and his great economic ideas and how he realized way before many others of his time what would and would not work in his newly formed democracy.